I'm here in Trinidad, and I'm in the office of Mr. Michael Cooper. He will speak about who he is, what he is doing here. But I'm into this research program, as I mentioned, and I'm writing my thesis, major research paper, that deals with something to this effect: pan in the diaspora. What is the steel pan effect? The steel pan development abroad, what impact, how has it impacted Trinidad and Tobago? Or is impacting Trinidad and Tobago, its place of origin. Okay, so that is basically the question I want to ask. Okay, but Michael, maybe you could just tell me who you are first, just for the record, we kind of know.
Okay, I am Michael Cooper. I'm doing I am the president of Pan and Trinidad and Tobago Limited. We are pan manufacturers. We are powder coating service also for pan and other things. Um, we have been producers and suppliers of steel pan worldwide. This is our 20th year, uh, and we continue to do that.
Great. So that's 20 years of this business.
20 years,
Well,
yes.
maybe I can just ask one question. 20 years ago, well, we know in these last 2 decades, there's been a lot of activities with steel pan all over the place. But what would make you 20 years ago decide to go into this direction? Did you have some idea of how? Did you see an expansion, based on how it was going here in Trinidad? Because 20 years from that time to now abroad, there's so many different things that have happened.
Well, actually, I was not really into pan. Pan was not one. We all interested in pan. We know what is happening. I know a lot of the guys in steel pan in the movement generally. But I was not involved with a steel band. I still am not directly involved with a steel band as such. I don't pay pan with a band, but I pay otherwise. And at that time, I was heading an initiative in the Milan Marcy Group, where I was the managing director of the assembly plant in Arima. And the assembly plant was due to close, scheduled closure because of what was happening worldwide with the new regimes of trade and so on. So the assembly industry was one of the industries targeted for complete transformation, right? So the group was getting out of motor vehicle assembly, and we had a very large and nice facility in Arima. And the question was, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do with that facility? So I was, as head of that organization, I was charged with the responsibility of researching for new activity for the assembly plant. And travel far and wide, and even near, which is Trinidad. There are a number of things that we came upon, and the steel pan was one of the possible options. So basically what I'm saying is my approach was strictly from the business angle and not even from a cultural angle.
Well, this is good because this is not too often, you get the always slogan and we're not into business of pan. So this is good to find that you're here doing that.
So from then to now, that has been my main consideration. And of course, there are the other dimensions which I am part of.
Okay.
But at the time, the steel pan to me seemed to be one of the best options, if not the best option that I came across for development of the new industry at a particular level. Of course, at that time, there was an industry existing. There were people making pans, there were steel pans, there were pan makers, people doing business and so on. But to my mind at the time, there was not commercial level activity in pan, in the manufacturer, marketing and so on, steel pan. And I saw that as an area that I should really dive into and see what I can
Right.
make happen.
So, do you think 20 years now that you've been in it, it's been a good decision, a good choice? Are you comfortable with the choice you made?
Well, to say comfortable, I would say you're never comfortable, you know.
Okay.
Business is that kind of animal. Um, and we have had some hard knocks and some rough rides, you know, in those years. But I don't regret the decision.
Okay.
I think it is something that if I had to do it, I will do it again. Maybe the 20 years I will make some other, you know,
Okay.
detours and so on. But
This is what
things of
experience
the-
brings.
Yes, in hindsight, you know, it's always the best side. But certainly, I still believe today, even more so actually, in the opportunity and the potential for the industry, steelman industry, as a major, major
Good. Well,
local economic.
I'm glad that you're saying that it's a major local economic development project. Good. So this could bring you straight to my question then, right? How has the steelpan development abroad impacted or is impacting the steelpan development here in Trinidad and Tobago, its place of origin? From your perspective, like with your, you could say,
My
say
area,
anything you wish.
yeah. I mean, there are other aspects, but I think what has happened with the steel pan worldwide um, has obviously impacted here. I think in terms of and let me talk about us specifically to start, and then I can probably broaden it. Um, when I got involved in 94, 93, 94, what I saw was really an international level business. It was an international market that I saw, not really a local market. I know that there was an activity, the local activity and so on. But the attraction to me was always, from then and still is, the international marketplace. And of course, it had to be that because of the kind of level of business that I was envisaged, you know, that I had envisioned at the time, which can't be sustainable locally, obviously, in terms of the marketplace. As things became clearer and more known to me, it was obvious that there was demand internationally for the pan as a musical instrument. I became more and more familiar with the kind of activities, steel band activity, bands that were operating, things that were opening up and developing. There were people who were getting involved in the making and tuning of pans, you know, all over the world. What was interesting though is that in all of the cases, generally, there was a Trinidad connection. Not that Trinidad was doing it, but there was always a Trinidad connection.
Okay. That's
And
good.
everybody who I've spoken with in PAN, even up to now, there is a thread that connects to Trinidad in terms of how they got into it and how they developed. Many of them came to Trinidad for information and training, whether formal or informal. And Trinidad, you know, we talk about we losing whatever, but in my mind, the people who I have been in touch with, that connection to Trinidad and how they see Trinidad, that hasn't changed. Okay, whether it be 1, 2, 3 generations away or just one, you know, and there is still the attraction, of course, if you come here and experience man in Trinidad, panorama or whatever.
Right. The ethnicity of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important.
So I have to make that point because it's important. Because I think whatever happens worldwide in PAN will be influenced in some way by what happens to pan in Trinidad.
Yes.
We are not as proactive as we should be, of course, and I think we can be more influential in what happens. But that connection, that connection has not been severed. It is there and very strong. Having said that, though, the steel pan has grown in many areas and in many aspects. I've seen it in the US. Um, it has blossomed in many different areas, and the restriction of that growth has really been supply of pan, supply of expertise, supply of training, supply of development, not desire or demand.
Okay.
Right?
Important.
If even as things exist now, if there is a different trust in terms of what is supplied to that marketplace, in terms of education, in terms of exposure, in terms of availability, where someone can access a program for a school or whatever without much hassle,
Right.
it is going to expand, I think, exponentially. Now, that capacity still doesn't exist. It is there, but in terms of I think I want to put something in perspective here. Very early, and because of the trust that we had to move the steel pan as an international musical instrument, I looked at the musical instrument market and not the cultural market.
Okay.
Okay, cultural marketplace, just to be very vague with the explanation, cultural marketplace to me has to do with the panoramas and the West Indian Connection festivals and that sort of thing.
Right.
We have not, I don't know anything about Notting Hill in terms of that, or Toronto, Caribana,
Okay.
I say I don't know, I know what happened.
Right.
In terms of trying to get into those markets, that has never been our target.
Okay.
Right? We look at the steel pan as a musical instrument, so we have been targeting musical instrument business and importers and exporters. This is basically what has been.
And does your market extend to North America,
All
South,
over.
all over,
All over.
Europe, all over?
We have sold pans all over the world. Right now we have distributors, people at the distribution level in the US, in England, in Europe, in Japan, and we have people at a dealer level. And the difference is between people who import to sell to the shops as opposed to the shops that import to sell
Right.
to the
Okay.
consumer.
Different levels.
And of course we have the retail level, which we don't really target as much because our business, because of the level that I'm targeting, is wholesale business rather than retail business.
So the majority of your business, therefore, is it local or international?
That has varied in the past. What has happened recently with these government school programs and so on created a local demand. Actually, that was one of more recent difficulties, which we don't have to go into. But the local demand has, over the last few years, the profile of that has changed because of the government, the Ministry of Education, their program for putting pans in the schools. That has created a local demand.
Okay.
There has been a local demand generally, otherwise, you always have the interest with the community and individuals and a lot of people coming through gifts, what have
Right.
you.
But how has this, is this the pan in the schools then? What is the present status of it?
It has resurfaced
Okay.
very recently. I think there's a tender out that probably has been awarded already for reintroduction of that activity.
Okay.
The Pine Schools program is still ongoing. right? In terms of the supply of pans to the program, that had been stopped.
Okay.
Um,
So
pan,
since the
pan,
last set, then how long ago was that? Just in terms of any more growth since that point.
we supplied. The program actually stopped with the change of the government. It was
Okay.
in 2010. We started 2010.
Okay. And has
Um,
there been any more pans since that period?
right.
Not just getting into the politics, but I just want to put it in the
No, it
perspective.
just started. It just restarted.
It just restarted.
Yeah,
Okay.
actually, they changed a few things. You had a change in the format of that, where they changed the pan in the schools unit to a multi-ethnic unit, where a multicultural unit, right? Where it's not just pan, but it's other instruments or other groups, whether it be African drum, whether it be Indian tabla, different
Okay.
whatever it is. These are the instruments, parang instruments,
Okay.
what have you. What also happened is the SEA, which is the primary school um, curriculum, I think the structure of the SEA was changed, and something called CAC, Continuous Assessment, something was introduced,
Okay.
which is going to expose the children, and as part of their exams, they will have a portion of that deals with some cultural and behavioral sort of aspects of education. And that program requires also a number of instruments, not band now we're talking. Secondary school is the band, like the band in the classroom.
Okay.
But in this case, each school is being supplied with 2 tenor bands.
Okay.
As well
So
as
some kind of pedagogy stuff thing that it can work.
supplied with
Okay. Right.
whatever else.
Okay.
So that is a next demand situation that we have come into, and we are part of that supply,
Okay.
and that just started this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So 1 second. Just
Oh, of course.
Suzanne. No. These things would make a difference to us, our activity, and our trust. We have, having gone through in 2009, 2008, 2009, the primary schools program, which was running at the time, and it sort of consumed a lot of capacity, local capacity. And of course, we got sidetracked from our international trust, because at one time, about 90% of our production was exported. And when this happened, there was a big transformation, came down to about 50%.
Okay.
But at that time also, remember, there was the world economic sort of crisis, if you may,
Right.
that was affecting everybody, and demand just sort of plummeted.
Right.
And obviously our customers were also affected. So at that time you had dropping here and increasing here, and we ended up that way. And we did not really pay too much attention to what was happening internationally. So when this stopped,
Okay, I see.
we got caught with our pants down.
Okay.
And therein lie a lot of situations that we ran into.
Okay.
2010, 2011, 2012, which we now kind of putting ourselves out of.
But in like for instance, definitely Trinidad impacted the rest of the world because people come, as you mentioned, they come, they learn, they get training, then they go out and they reproduce. Okay, and that's it. In many cases, because they may have the technology and the resources that so readily available, with even governments getting involved. Okay, but so this now, you think now our government and more people then now, because of the impact that it's having abroad, would also raise the level of their game here in so many different ways. I know obviously you recognize this, so this is why you're into the business of pan.
Yes,
but as you mentioned just now from a call, maybe the emphasis on culture is so instilled in everyone then that they just see it, the people who are doing it and the people who are looking on, that, oh, that's just culture, and not seeing that it's a big business now and it could be a bigger development in all aspects if it is understood, if it's promoted.
Yes. And I think therein lies a lot of the local issues, right? Where it is seen as a cultural activity and not as an economic activity, right? And I think the economic activity needs to be examined. I don't think not that I don't think it has not been. I'm pretty certain, and I haven't seen anything. I think I would have. The studies have been done. There has been an analysis or assessment done of the potential of of a local industry. But while saying that, um, the movement of pan internationally, and it is moving,
Hmm.
um, and there are a lot of people who are involved, local people involved from here, local people who reside abroad involved, you being one of them also. Um, it is a very dynamic thing. I think it is something that can probably move much faster than it's moving, but I think it's moving quite significantly based on by any measure.
So you can see then in the last 2 decades, then there's an increase in activities with it, so to speak, as we go. So you
Yes.
can probably envision within the next 10, 20 years that whatever we experience now, a lot of stuff that we're thinking about could happen. What do you think? What do you
I think
envision
I
as a?
think I think it's a question of people people becoming more interested in this particular opportunity. I don't think people have recognized it. Um, there is natural growth, obviously. If I was not involved, there will still be growth. There may not be growth in this specific area, right? So there is going to be natural growth. I think in terms of the opportunities that can be available um, for local people, and generally in PAN, what can move it, there has to be a conscious look and activity towards that end. It is not something that you wish should just happen by default, which is what is taking place. Um, the business is going to drive that. Culture drives certain things, and people like certain things, and they're happy, and events, right? But the history of anything, the history of any instrument, um,
Business.
any one of the and as I said, I am fortunate because I have been in the musical instrument market, and I'm a member of NAM, I'm a member of PASIC, Pacific Art Society, National Association of Music Merchants. We have been in those shows. That's where we have exhibited. That's where we got our
Great.
customers from.
Hmm.
They were not in the carnivals. They were in the music markets. Okay? So it's a different thing. It's a different thing in terms of packaging, in terms of service, in terms of how you deal with people. It's a product for a particular product market.
Right.
Right? And that is how we see it. Now, from that aspect, I can understand musical instrument. I can understand the business of musical instrument. There is a 8 billion US dollar market for musical instruments.
As we speak.
That was a few years ago when I last checked,
Okay.
right? Percussion is a very, very small percentage of that. And pan is a very microcosm of percussion. Okay? So, this way it is,
So do
right?
you think then, as time goes on, then everything will be contributing to a whole its entire growth because the more it becomes popular, the more it becomes known, the more it is expressed in other more institutions of learning or shows or everything. It's more it's gonna boom in itself.
It's going to get attractive.
It's
But
gonna get
it
attractive
has to be supplied. So it's going to boom in
accordingly.
interest, but it has to be supplied. You have to have now fans. You have to have artisan, you have
So
to
let
have
me ask, how
teachers, you have
many,
to have literature.
right, so how many people in the, do you know, actually are doing what you're doing, have set up a business that deals with pan and your import, export, and more export, I would imagine, right?
Not very many. Not very
So
many.
in Trinidad, would you say how many more
I would
are
say
doing
in
at your
Trinidad right
level or
now,
close to your level
well,
or
at
whatever?
my level, there probably are a couple of people, two or three people at most,
At the
right?
most.
Other than that, you're dealing with people who just deal at a retail level. They make pants
Okay.
and they sell pants.
So in itself then, but before, because of the fact now that steel pan is also made abroad now, it has, you know, not just exclusively only in Trinidad you can get a steel
That's
pan
right.
anymore.
That's right.
Okay, so this lessens your market, but in itself too, it can serve as a good, as a more of it's going to be expressed and exported, and it's going to be more known now that more people can make it abroad, so it can spread further. This in itself should have some good feedback in the end to Trinidad,
Well,
shouldn't it?
my view on that is it might be different from a lot of people. When you say that it lessens my market, I see that it expands my
It
market.
expands them. Okay, good.
Whenever there are people involved in this business, I encourage them. Um, my philosophy from very early, and people have called me different names for it, just my business. But look at an industrial situation where when we came in, when I came in, the number of people who could have tuned fans who were available for tuning, a lot of them knew them by name, a lot of people knew them by name. Now you're not too sure on the names of the people who have tuned in. From the time we got involved to now, the last time I checked, there were 18 pan tuners who came through this company, and most of whom are out there. Actually, there are 30. There are 18 who are still active and doing business and tuning and active and making a very good living. Some of them very well off. Okay, that came through here. Many of them came in here from scratch. They knew nothing. Okay, and here has been a training ground, a producer of people. How that happened, it was very conscious. The great Bertie Marshall and Lincoln Well, they used to cuss me and tell me, what you're doing that for? You're not going to get anything out of it. The guy is going to leave you when they get good. Many of them left, most of them left. I still have excellent relationships with all of them. Okay? But at the time, you cannot have an industry of a certain size if you don't have people with the skills, whether they reside in your factory or not in your factory.
That's very forward thinking.
I didn't have a choice. If you have that vision, you can't be stupid. You have to put things in place that the vision can be realized.
Okay.
And that it had to happen. So they can see that. A lot of people can see it. And now, the other commercial people who I just mentioned in Trinidad, my competitors, they call me and say, boy, if you didn't do what you did, what we would have done, because the people who work for them are people who came from here. They didn't train, they didn't make that investment. I did.
Right.
Okay? These are some of the important things that still have to happen.
Okay.
That still have to happen. So, that industry, externally, it is the same situation. Now, Ellie Manet, I know Ellie trained quite a number of people, and there are a lot of people that Ellie would have had, like Kyle and these guys in different parts of the US who are doing their own sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what training is being done now. If there are more of those going to happen, I don't know that Ellie is still continuing at the same level. So what is going to happen? Bertie just died, Lincoln died here, this one died. The young guys right now, most of who I said came out of here, are who are carrying the industry.
So your starting this business has been a big contribution, not just to spread pan abroad, but to develop pan tuners. So that's a
well,
great help that you have put out here
well,
with your business.
my objective from early, of course, you got in there and you say, this thing is something I could make money. But as you progress, you realize that it is not that simple, right? Um, Many of the guys who have got, there are people who got in there to say, okay, I'll buy pan and sell pan, let a profit, make money, and so on. Our investment here went way beyond that. It went um, in terms of our image, right? I mean, we could be operating out our back room, but it was important. We branded our product. Panman is an international brand, registered in the US. Um, we did certain patents, some very basic things. Our literature, where we exhibited the pan. I could tell you at the NAM show, which is in the winter market in California, in Anaheim. Years I was there were 5, this is a show that has 1,500 exhibitors. It has over 80,000 buyers who visit that. Now I say buyers, not retail people. These are commercial buyers, importers, distributors, whatever. It's all a commercial level show. It's not a public show. About 40–50% are international people, international, not US based, right? So in 1,400 exhibitors in the NAM show, there are five exhibitors who had anything to do with steel pan in their product line, in their offer, 5 of them.
Okay.
And all of the 5, we were one of the 5.
Okay.
All of the other 5 were our customers.
They were your customers.
They were my customers.
Okay.
Right?
I see.
Now there were times, I think that could change slightly. Panyard Inc. is in Akron. They started coming to the show more recently.
Okay.
And we backed up. I haven't gone to that show because it's not necessary for me to go to the show anymore. Although there should be that presence.
That's no mention if there's no other Trinidad organization would be looking to do something like that, because I think that presence is important.
So we have profiled the steel pan in that forum.
Okay.
I mean, that is a forum where Stevie Wonder passed, Stevie Wonder ordered cello from us. Right?
Interesting.
And things like that.
Interesting.
You see all
So,
the big
but
guys, all
okay,
the big musicians
I see.
in that show.
Yeah.
It's a musical instrument.
But it's important to have much more of that for the international development of it, isn't it? Because you made, if you weren't there now, like you said, Stevie Wonder ordered a cello, and it's interesting. But this is what is needed. It needs a lot more.
Trust, and this is the point I was making earlier, where there has to be a recognition or a look at this economic activity, and then you will see.
Right.
I will expose you to something now. The biggest opportunity that I have come to realize in this industry is in the smaller pans.
The smaller pans.
Yeah. Now we have been a small pan manufacturer from ever since. Actually, that has kept us alive as a base level product. So we have delved in those markets. We understand those markets very well. But more recently, but not actually more recently, I stumbled on this opportunity in 2002, 2003, 2004. And now I've revisited it. The toy market for musical instruments is multiple times bigger than the market for normal musical instruments.
Well, that's interesting.
Okay. um, toy market for steel pans, those musical instruments, um, miniature toy steel pans. These are performance products, okay? These
Hmm.
are not ornament. When
Right.
you have to pay, you have the song, whatever.
Right.
Um, that has turned out to me to be probably the biggest opportunity.
Interesting.
Um, and
That's a a nice. That's an
it has
interesting
taken,
aspect upon
yeah, it
that.
has taken, it is a very technical area. It is not, it is not a simple area.
Okay.
But we have transcended that and we broke into that market last year. Actually, in 2003, we got an inquiry and we got involved with it where a supplier, importer from China actually, wanted, came to us. We were at the show out in California and said that my, my boss wants this steel pan in his line. We are supplier, importer of
Hmm.
starter musical instruments,
Okay.
starter guitar, starter drum set,
Right.
starter piano,
Right.
starter
Oh,
whatever.
good.
And he thinks that this is something that can be. To cut a long story short, that year we had an order that stretched us to the hilt here, working 24 hours and all sorts of things
Hmm.
to complete it. And that was a trial order. And the trial was successful in the
Good.
marketplace. And
Good.
because it was successful, I ran from it the next year because it was too big for us to handle.
Is that right?
Yes, and
But
that's
that's
one
interesting
customer.
for business.
One customer. So I've decided to revisit that, and we re-entered. I went and I did a different kind of approach now because it's an animal that you have to be careful of. Um, so we did some pricing. I was in New York in 2011 Toy Fair. I was in Germany in 2012 Toy Fair in Nuremberg, the largest in the world, and gauged interest and gauge the comments and gauge whatever it is. Also, just as we did with the musical instrument market, you have to match up your product against the other toys
Right.
in the toy market,
Hmm.
the other musical toys.
Hmm.
Um, and there are a lot of standards and a lot of testing and
Right.
a lot of compliance situations
Safety,
and so on.
security,
A lot
safety,
of it
everything. Yeah.
um, that we went through. Expensive, but we had to send a lot of product to Hong Kong in a lab to be
Okay.
certified,
Toxic. Yeah. Okay.
for that market and so
Okay.
on. And we have traveled quite a distance, and we have had quite a response. And we are at the point now, we had our first big order for last quarter in 2012. We ordered this year already, and I just one customer.
Good.
So why that is to me the biggest opportunity, because pan tuning, which is a skill really in the industry, the learning curve is quite long.
Right.
So to develop a capacity is quite a challenge. Quite a
To get to
challenge.
the type of level that is expected.
Right. We have done that. We have a lot of guys who we have lifted and so on, and who are doing the thing at that level. Um, this particular industry, however, you're talking about a much shorter learning curve,
Okay.
and the rest is really industrialized.
Okay. I
So,
see.
it
But it's all part of the whole pan
is the whole
business.
pan.
Yep.
As a matter
So
of
that's great.
fact,
That's great.
how I have seen this, besides the toy aspect, as I told you, we have been involved in the small pan for many years, but in the education system, right, in England and in other places, in education,
Okay.
preschool education.
Right.
I can show you some catalogs, for example. There's a company called
Yeah.
Musical Education
Just hold it up.
Supplies, right? Musical Education Supplies.
Okay.
Okay, this company is dedicated to supplying schools with musical instruments.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Okay. So, okay. And these are all your products there.
these are one of my products. This is
That's very good.
one of our distributors.
That's very good.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is preschool kids, and this is before we get. They're not toys. We ain't getting
Okay.
toys here yet. And we have a couple of the catalogs like this.
So, but that's good. So, in conclusion, yes, Trinidad impacted the rest of the world, and everyone has followed suit. And you can, so there's a both way thing that's happening now. Then the impact is, felt one way, and then things are happening, and then and there's a good feedback and so on.
Yeah.
So that augurs well for the growth of the whole pan internationally, don't you think?
I think it's fantastic. I think it's fantastic. I just wish that many other people, not necessarily competitors, but people at who affect the structural decisions in the country,
Mhm.
who make decisions at that level, can see the opportunity and probably invest in it.
Well, this would bring me this. We could say this is off the record.
Yeah.
But anyways, I have like even the next set of people I want to get into. I want it's more kind of proactive too. In that I've done some research in it, and I'm intending to do a lot more. I honestly feel then that because there's a lot of culture attached to the steel pan here in Trinidad, right? I think, and I would continue writing. Maybe I'll send it to you. You could give me a critique on it. But a ministry exclusively for the steel pan, not attached to anything. But I feel if it has that, where it can have its own space, its own budget, its own resources, its own vision, it can. And part of the thing that I've said to that is that because it's the most important thing, and you mentioned it too, is in the education. If we could get the pans in all the schools and colleges and universities, and the way I'm looking at it, so far for the last couple of centuries, been two basic types of instruments in all universities and colleges and high schools and so on, would be string ensembles and wind ensembles, right? And that has been the norm. You can go, and the strings concentrate more on classical, the wind more on jazz and certain things like that. But here now we have, and all of these have their own family. The pan has its own family too, from bass to soprano. So the pan now should try to find, and that's part of one of the papers I'm writing, that on an equivalent basis as that of all strings and wind instruments in all these universities. And so if the pan can spread to that level, then we're talking about an entire billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry to supply pans in all these schools. And even though it's being made abroad, Trinidad is still in the game because there's a lot. So all of these are things that I'm putting forward to present for that. Why an exclusive ministry for the steel pan? Because it will help also promote that whole concept. Because in its vision, it will look towards, well, we need to get this pan in all universities in North America, all universities in Europe, all universities in Asia. Just as you have string instruments and wind instruments. So you've envisioned something like that happening. You know then this is a billion dollar in industry. So having a ministry to regulate that and come up with things relative to that, I think it's important. And you need to have it separate from rest of culture. But of course we know politics here in Trinidad is another story and another. So just even the concept of thinking about that in itself with people, there's a lot of resentment because of the diverse politics. But business people sitting down like yourself and envision pan in all this is all you have to do. Envision it in all universities in North America, Europe, Asia. South America, wherever there are universities and colleges, just as you have string instruments, violin, cello, the whole works, and wind instruments, horns and saxophones, everything. Envision percussion with pan, a whole range of pan instruments now as an equivalent choice. You either do strings, wind, or pans. because we have a whole family. We're unique in that we have a complete family. So just envision this as a businessman, panning all over the place. You will be in work. Right now, you can't supply it. So it will force the same Ministry of Education to set up proper training, like what you have been doing on your own voluntary as a private institution in a major public, where it's an education, it's a process, so it's a whole aspect of business that you're developing to make an industry work. So you need all the training, all the different areas. Because you have to be able to envision then that if you set up a ministry for that, that's your target. You have a target. It's not like you don't. You have a target. You have to make it nice and lucrative and sellable that you could go to these universities and say, here's what you need. Here's a whole range of instruments. You need to get this program going. And like you said, all the things that has to go with books, the whole, everything, all the accessories to it. So I am hoping then that something like that. But people like you is what will make the government here wake up and realize that this is definitely an area that they should be going. And try to get it now to grab a bigger piece of the pie. Because, as you know, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, suppose China invests into this. Suppose they decide, well, look, maybe let me buy out Michael Cooper and get his whole thing here, make you an offer you can't refuse, and
China,
it's business, and they bring the whole thing. And then, yeah, and that happens. We're going to be once in the game, but, again, we know what's happening here.
Well,
But
I think, Salah, I'm hearing that you know a lot. You know a lot, that you have a lot of perspective. It is surprising, and it has surprised me almost every time when I talk to people at a certain level, what their understanding and perspective is of the pan. And therein lies the problem, and it has nothing to do with which political party. So that makes it even worse, because you cannot hope that, okay,